Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and welcome to Monday. I hope you had a great weekend, but it didn't take long for the craziness to start all over again. Another flash crash in the currency markets. The British pound hitting new all-time record lows. We had the Chinese renminbi below 7 renminbi to the dollar for the first time in a long time. The Japanese yen back to 145. Things continuing to get weirder and weirder. Talks about emergency meetings at central banks. Nobody can wait 6 weeks. We've decided we can't wait every other week. We've got my son Joey's joining us this morning along with Jason to kind of really just talk about things. The Dow hitting new lows. It's down almost another 100 points as we speak, and bond yields shooting up all over the world as inflation continues to roar. And Jason, it's created a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah, when it comes to comparing currencies to each other, it's quite the game, and with the world economic markets in turmoil, it's gonna be a rocky road from here on out, Joe. This is gonna be some crazy stuff. It's happening right now.
Yeah, and this is not so normally. So we've been through these things before, but the currency crisis, they were in like emerging markets, right? Argentina's got a problem again, right? Oh, these African countries got a problem again, and nobody really worried about it all too much. But now this is hitting all the major countries of the world. And Joey, they keep repeating the same thing. It's not that the dollar's strong; it's just that these other places they're in worse shape than we are, and it's really causing a lot of confusion out there with people wanting to know what to do with their money.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. It's just looking at the yen last week, and I think the yen is if you look at some sort of a correction going on there, it really looks like selling off U.S. Treasuries is going to be what these markets. It's going to be their go-to play, which is going to cause even more damage worldwide, Joe.
Yeah, it really is an interesting thing. The British 10-year note now out yielding the U.S. notes. There's talk about ending quantitative tightening. Again, it's just talk and speculation, but we're really just going to have to wait and see how it works out. And I guess we don't have Joey on, Jason.
I'm checking with Jack. Okay, he's there. Go ahead, Joey.
There. Joey, go ahead.
I missed what was talked about the last minute. I just kind of heard the introduction. I think right now there's a lot of chaos going on with all these different currencies fluctuating, going up and down. It's, hey, how strong is the dollar? Should we be afraid about what's happening? And I think, we should be concerned. But I don't think it brings reason for us to completely give up on what's going on. I think we should still be smart, making good moves, and having hope for the future.
Listen, I've had a lot of people, they call here because, I don't remember Joey's number, and they're talking about, they've been listening, and you've been telling everybody, call me, at least let me make sure you're positioned right. Northwestern Mutual, you guys have been at this for 170 plus years. We talked about the last time you were on, there's only 6 companies in the world that are considered the highest AAA type rated companies. You're one of them. I think you're the only financial company. And a lot of these investors are being told, hey, just stay in. This has always been just stay in. But you guys actually do it differently. You're like, yeah, stay in. but let's adjust to the realities. And right now, the reality is that we are in a rate hiking cycle. The dollar's been rallying. There are things that you can do that's going to save your backside a lot of heartache and pain if you make those changes.
Yeah, right. And there's things going on in the market right now. We see stocks and equities are down, but you look at treasuries and things like that. Those are yielding 3%, 4%, and it's as high as it's ever been in a long, long, long time. So there's certain little things we can be doing, transitioning our money from equities into our safe markets like treasuries and being able to reap those rewards, right? It's making sure we're properly allocated. Listen, if you're very uncomfortable right now, you can't sleep at night, that means you're too aggressive in the market. We should change it. I hear a lot of advisors telling their clients, hey, we need to stay in, let's stay super aggressive. Now, I may agree to an extent, but if you're losing sleep every night over this stuff, we shouldn't be investing our money like that, right? At the end of the day, you're the one putting the hours in. You're the one making this money. If you're uncomfortable with how it's invested or this market right now is scaring you, at least make the phone call. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about where you're at. And then let's devise a plan to say, hey, maybe we should do X, Y, and Z, or leave it where it is. It's really all about, what's comfortable for you, what's the timing of the market, what's your time frame for retirement, and things like that. I think that life's too short to be losing sleep over things like this, and if you are, we should allocate our money to be more conservative.
Joey, we're coming up on the break. Give out your number really quickly.
Yeah, just reach me on my personal cell phone. That's 602-909-9048. Again, 602-909-9048, or you can find my information on the KHSC website.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason, and it's Monday. We're going to have Joey on every Monday for the foreseeable future here. Of course, Joey's my son. He's a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual. And Joey, the one thing I hear, and obviously we watch a lot of financial news, and a lot of people are being told, well, you know what? You're already down 20 or 30%, so we're just going to stay invested because a lot of these things we think will come back later, and you just need to ride it out, which is really the absolute wrong thing to do. I never understood it, because if you know the environment you're in, higher interest rates, the dollar's rallying, right? The global economy teetering on recession. There are certain things you should do to ensure you don't lose another 20 or 30% of your money. And then, hey, when the rate hiking cycle comes to an end, which we all know it will, right at that time you reallocate again. And you can be more aggressive then, but you can be more aggressive with a lot more money if you do the right thing now.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, and I think the biggest thing is before all this even happened, there should have been a conversation with your advisor regarding how your money's invested. It was pretty apparent, when the market started going down, that we were really going to go down. We were hiking the interest rates and all of that. So if there wasn't a conversation 3 months ago, 2 months ago about how we're invested in our portfolio, I think that's a red flag. And certainly right now, if people are getting more aggressive, there is a chance this thing keeps going down and you're losing 40% of your money. Now, I think it's very important to stay disciplined, and if we are down 20%, we're not pulling out all of our money, right? But we're reallocating the way it's being worked into things and making sure that we're not locking in this 20% loss. But I think the biggest thing to focus on is why were we so aggressive before all of this happened, right? We went through the small COVID cycle where it went down 20%, then shot back up. And then after that, we should have known, hey, let's be a little bit more conservative with our dollars because something else is brewing up, and here it is, and we are here now. And I think it's important that before this happened, you probably should have gotten a phone call from your advisor or at least had a conversation about the philosophy of planning and how we want to invest our dollars. And if that didn't happen, I'm more than willing to talk to you, talk about some strategies, and just revisit what's going on and take a look at how you're being invested.
And I think that's the key part is when you know that, okay, the next big change in the market is coming, you guys over there at Northwestern Mutual, you guys reach out to your clients and say, okay, let's reallocate again, right? Let's take advantage, because as you know, if you miss the 10 biggest day, either up or down on Wall Street every year, you miss a lot of the move.
Yeah, no, all the big moves really happen in those 10 days, like you said, and it's just is our money in the market? Are we allocated correctly? Are we overly aggressive? If you're in your 50s, if you're in your 60s, and you're at 80% equities, 70% equities, I think we have a problem there. You're way too aggressive. The market is way too volatile, especially in these conditions. There's a lot of things going on outside of America. A lot of things happen in foreign markets that is stirring the pot here for us financially. And I think, in these uncertain times, I'd rather be safe than sorry, right? We should be pretty conservative right now, considering all the weird and crazy things that are going on, and really things we haven't seen in a long, long time. The Treasuries are actually yielding 3 to 4%. It's crazy. Bonds were down 12% historically, and now they're starting to kick back up with interest rates raising. So it's how do we reposition our money to take advantage of these safe opportunities?
Joey, I think there's things that are happening that have never happened before. So I think that's another thing that people that listen to Patriot Radio News Hour are starting to understand, that the current situation may be similar to others, but it is unique. And in my understanding of what's happening, there might be a little time for you guys to call Joey. It may last a few months or a year. We may have a slow crash, but as Joe has said many times, they may start slow and then all at once. I think there's very likely, let's just take Japan, what Joe started with, or we started with the euro, but let's go with Japan. Japan has a lot of U.S. Treasuries. There's this reverse repo market. It's just a big pile of cash. What Japan needs, and who knows which banks have their money sitting there, they need to convert their treasuries into cash and buy their own currencies while this thing is crashing. That $2 trillion sitting in that reverse repo is going to be used, I think, in this fashion, which could buy the markets a little bit of time so that they can crash it, in my opinion, on a Republican's watch here in the next couple of years. So I'll put it to the listeners this way when it comes to Joey and what he can do for you. Do you like going to Walmart and buying your toilet paper and it's not a big deal? Or did you like when 2020 when it just disappeared and you went in there and there was nothing there? Do not wait to call Joey to help you with your financial needs. Call now when it's really easy, right, Joe?
Yeah, that's the important part. And again, I know a lot of people are feeling pretty hopeless right now because maybe they haven't been in the markets and they're just, inflation's eating up a lot of their money, and a lot of people are like, man, I'm never going to be able to retire. But you can do a lot with a little, can't you? Over time, right? A little here and a little there. It's like our metals plan. Our metals plans, hey, some people, they're only doing $100 a month, but they've been in the plan for 4 or 5 years, and all of a sudden, hey, I got a good pile of gold and silver. Investing your money with Wall Street, it's the same way, because as we know, Social Security is not enough for a lot of people because of, unfortunately, how 401ks work. They don't get reallocated properly, and they're in these 401ks. They end up borrowing against it. They do all these other things. They get hit with oversized losses. It's not enough. But if you have the right people in your corner, you got the right plan in place, a little bit here and a little bit there, Joey, can go a long way.
Yeah, it goes a tremendous ways. I mean, we're just implementing small steps at a time. This plan isn't built in 1 year. We're not going to make you do 100 different things. We're going to do one thing every step at a time. I'm a big believer. Some people make millions of dollars, but they're not financially stable. They don't know what's coming in. They don't know what's going out. I don't think that more money necessarily means you have a better financial plan. I know some people making $80,000 a year that are way more financially stable compared to people making $500,000 a year. It's about implementing small things step by step, to make sure that our money is working for us and to make sure that we're properly protected from this crazy thing we call life. And I think it all starts with just a conversation and being open-minded to certain ideas, and then being disciplined in saving every month and realizing, hey, if we do these little things, and the earlier we start these little things, the way more comfortable we're going to be when we enter retirement. I don't want people to be fearful and think that, oh, I have no chance of getting to retirement. I don't believe in that. I think that if we implement the plan, if we start doing things today, I think we're going to be all right. We can't just rely on the government for Social Security or things like that, because at the end of the day, they're really not going to help us retire, and it's going to be up to us to remain disciplined, to remain hopeful, and realize that if we start doing these things today, we will be okay in the future. And that is my firm belief, that anyone can retire. We just have to implement a strategy to get there.
The key word.
And I got to bring this up too, Joey. Janet Yellen, she's been talking about taxes, right, and the need to increase taxes. They're hiring all of those IRS agents. Tax planning's got to be a big part of this. A lot of people don't even know. They think they're doing great, and then they realize, wait a minute, my financial advisor didn't do a very good job of tax preparation, and all of a sudden I need to start living on this money, and people can get decimated with that. That's another big factor that you guys do a lot of.
No, it's a huge factor. I love that you brought that up. We're talking to a guy making, around $500,000. He's got over $1 million in his investments. And, he's like, yeah, I have a financial plan through my advisor. We're like, oh, that's great. We'd love to see it. Sent it over, and there was no tax planning on there. And we were like, hey, did you know any strategies to save on taxes? Because we ran the analysis. And he would have been losing 40% of his money every time he withdrew from his market-tied investments due to his tax income bracket. Whereas with us, we would have found ways to store his money and put it into tax beneficial buckets so he wouldn't be paying those taxes in retirement. The biggest expense in our lifetime is going to be taxes. We're in a historically low tax bracket right now, and it's only going to get higher as the more money we are spending. Who's going to pay for that? It's going to be you and me.
So, again, there's all these different things, and you keep talking about this plan, and it's something that you do over time, obviously, right, depending on your age, depending on your income. It'll depend a lot about how you go about implementing those plans.
Yeah, exactly. All of it, we put it all into one place. We show you where we're coming from. We show you our analysis, and we show you why we're doing certain things. We don't proceed with any part of our plan until you know exactly what is going on and why we are doing it. We are big on transparency. If you don't know how your money is working for you, then you should get out of there and leave. You shouldn't be doing things. You shouldn't transfer money over to anybody unless you see a plan and you know how it works step by step. And that's something we do. We educate all of our clients specifically on what is going on so that you know how your money is working and you know the strategy you would have in place, and so that you can go to bed every day comfortable, knowing that you're going to be okay no matter what crazy things we're doing in our country, or no matter what crazy things are going on outside of our country. That our plan is bulletproof, and we've implemented strategies to cover taxes, to cover risk, and to grow our money.
Joey, we're coming up on the break, and I know you got to get out of here. You got clients to meet. Give out your number one last time.
Yeah, you can reach me at my personal cell. This is 602-909-9048. Again, that's 602-909-9048. You can always find my contact information on the KHNC website, and look forward to any conversation or talking with any of the listeners out there and seeing if I can help out and be of value to you.
Joey, always great having you. Have a great week. We'll talk again on next Monday. The Dow is at the lows of the session here, 29.3 and change, down a couple of 100 points. The S&P has gone negative as well. And Jason, this is really a currency crisis brewing. I think a very good possibility that the central banks of the world are going to have to, as you said, start buying each other's currencies. The problem with that is that means you've got to sell what you've got, which for a lot of these places, that's treasuries. At the same time, we've got quantitative tightening. This thing's just a big mess.
That's exactly right. So you talked about the euro. Well, let's just say Japan. Japan doesn't hold just dollars. why do I get the feeling they just started dumping euros, and that's creating this situation so that they can get euros and buy their yen? That's what's happening. The yen finally stopped tanking. Was it last Friday? I don't know how it's doing today, Joe. I didn't check it out.
Yeah, today it's gone the other way. So just the perspective, the euro's at 96 and change, so the euro's getting worse. The yen, 144.5. So it's near the worst levels. Remember, they had to intervene. The yen was up to 147. They got it all the way down to like 141. Now it's all coming all the way back here. The British pound, it's well off. It's doing the Japanese yen of last week. It got to 103 late last night. If you tuned out of the Bronco game, and you watch the stock channel, you are seeing the sterling just getting crushed. It's back here, but it's still down again here at 107. But Jason, a lot of talk about parity, a lot of talk about these countries now kind of upset with the Fed because the dollar is making inflation worse for these nations as well. We're going to talk more about that, Jason and I, when we get back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Monday. If you're just joining us, it was Jason, pretty much every currency outside of ours kind of in crisis mode. The euro at new lows that we haven't seen in a couple of decades. The British pound, the lowest ever. The Japanese yen back into that area where the Bank of Japan was warning about intervention. The Chinese renminbi below 7 for the first time in a really long time as well. And Jason, all these things, listen, people can't pay their power bill in Europe. Do you understand? We're not talking about, hey, I can't make my mortgage payment. No, I can't pay my power bill. Not because I don't have a job. No, I'm working. Right? I can pay my mortgage payment. I can pay my car payment. I can't pay the power bill. This is what is happening. China, Jason, I don't know how many times we've told them that they've got the ultimate housing Ponzi scheme going. Look at Japan. Japan just refuses to fight inflation at all, right? Their 10-year note is only yielding 0.25%. England, in the last couple of trading days, this is absolute insanity. Their 10-year note has risen almost a full point. Their 10-year notes yielding like 4.2% this morning. It's just incredible, all of the things that are happening. And, of course, everybody here at home, well, at least the guys on the stock channels, screaming at the Fed about you're raising rates too much. This big recession's coming. What are you doing? You owe Jeremy Siegel this morning saying the Fed owes the American public an apology for their ridiculous policies.
That's right, Joe. That's right, and it really is a rigged game. I just look at it, Joe, and it sure seems like there's a lot of manipulation as to where it's going and the timing of it, Joe. For people to listen to this stuff and know how rigged it is, how bad central banks are for the population and how it's rigged towards a few at the top versus everybody else while working and slaving at the bottom, it's you almost cheer for the crash because it looks like their system is in turmoil and that they're losing. Unfortunately, they've seen these systems come to an end and they just change it to something else. This is why it's really, Joe, we got to figure out how to take care of ourselves because it's really not going to be out of their power anytime soon.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we're watching all of this, and we're seeing more and more people get more and more vocal about what the Fed did and didn't do. Jeremy Siegel, he's the Wharton School guy, Nobel laureate, all this stuff. He's on TV all the time. Saying that Chair Powell should offer the American people an apology for such poor monetary policy that he's pursued, that the Fed has pursued over the last few years. Remember, he got rewarded by all that by getting reappointed. And no offense to Siegel, where was this 2 years ago? He wasn't saying any of that stuff. He was out there repeating the same garbage that the Fed was repeating about inflation being transitory. But now he's saying that the Fed is way too tough, that they're going to cause a recession, that Chair Powell is talking about all this jobs data, talking about the JOLTS data about jobs that are available, talking about the labor turnover data and how the labor markets are tight. And now Siegel saying, well, guess what? They were tight a year ago and you weren't worried about inflation then, so why are you worried about it now if the markets, the labor markets are as tight as they were a year ago? A year ago, you were still telling people it was transitory.
That's right, Joe. That's right. And it wasn't transitory, was it? It was far from transitory. In fact,
so me and you were the only two people out there telling people it wasn't.
Right. Well, unless transitory just means to transform into something different, because it transformed into a lot of inflation that's going to be here for a long time. You know, if they really wanted to squash it, they could squash it, Joe. And there's got to be some reason why they're just doing this like little tap dance and slowly going after it. You know, that I think they're trying to have their so-called soft landing or whatever this new world system, this digital currency. I think it just seems like they're buying themselves time. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, and listen to this one. It gets creepier. So we are talking about the pound and the trouble that it's in. The currency crisis keeps rolling here. But this one came out over the weekend that banking and financial firms in London are closely studying and updating contingency plans because they're thinking that there won't be electricity to protect themselves and their customers when the power goes out in the winter. Banks are discussing the idea and encouraging work from home policies, developing plans for. Could you imagine without the power, your ATM cards don't work, right, Jason? Your credit cards don't work. None of that stuff works.
Exactly, Joe. We are heading into I was listening to Jim Rickards over the weekend talk about. He calls the new digital currency company. He calls it the surveillance currency. That's what he calls it. The surveillance currency is on the way. He likes to call them Biden bucks. I don't think you should give Biden that much credit. Actually, he didn't make this up. He's just the tool that's in place.
He's just the puppet that's there. Yeah, I love that.
On the next segment, Joe, just real quick. On the next segment, I got a Jordan Peterson. It's only like a minute and a half. I want to play it because he has an interview with Piers Morgan. I don't like Piers Morgan, but he leaves him speechless. He basically sums up what's going on this winter in a minute 30 piece. It's breathtaking when you hear it because he nails it better than I think you and I have done over the last few months about what we're heading into.
London barely avoided a blackout this weekend. They had to go out into the electricity market and was buying power at $11,812 per megawatt hour. That is absolutely insane. That is 5,000% higher than the typical price. So let's just say in London, I don't know, their power bill was $300, but now they're saying, hey, it's 5,000 times more than that. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I just got a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 power bill, Jason.
And Jordan Peterson.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Jordan Peterson's going to talk about this in this little clip we're going to play. And he's going to start. He at the very end. He hits a very sore spot, a very scary, dark thing at the end, which is, what are we really heading into? So we'll have on this. I think Joe's going to love this because Jordan Peterson, he's logic. All he is logic. You're going to get a lot of common sense on the other side of the break.
1-800-951-0592. Gold's down 7 here, 1635. Silver had been up most of the day. It's down 5 cents here, 1877. The Dow is down 225, 29,365. The S&P, the NASDAQ, all lower as well, Jason. And we got this clip ready. Again, what are we setting ourselves up for? It's hard to put into words, and sometimes it helps hearing somebody else put it into words for us.
Absolutely. I talked about Jim Rickards a little bit earlier. I was listening to him talk about how this digital currency is going to force us into this green energy, which absolutely is going to. Well, Jordan Peterson, he's been asked a lot by a couple of interviewers about what he thinks about Vladimir Putin and what's going on in Europe and Asia. And this is just a piece of the Piers Morgan interview, where Piers Morgan, he's the kind of the liberal that's supposed to be sort of speaking the other side. He doesn't have anything to say. Everything that Jordan Peterson, it's a longer interview. We're just going to, this one piece is kind of sums up where the world is headed right now. So, Jack, let's play that and get Joe's reaction.
And we can't say no to Putin because we sold our soul for his oil and gas. And we did that to elevate our moral stature in relationship to saving the planet. And so here we are, facing a very dire winter, hoisted on the petard of our own foolishness and moral presumption. We're saving the planet. We'll see. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it to me. And this is the most catastrophic issue here. Assuming that we're facing an environmental crisis of planetary proportions, which is not something I buy, by the way, assuming we are, well, then I would imagine that you would put in place measures that would ameliorate that problem instead of exacerbating it. But all the measures you're putting in place are actually making the environmental problem worse. So how is that even vaguely acceptable? And I look at that and I think, oh, I see. It's just like George Orwell said about middle-class socialists 50 years ago. It's not that you love the planet, it's that you hate humanity. So, well, have at her, boys and girls, and we'll see what happens this winter. And it's very terrifying to me, especially here, because your energy prices have gone way out of control, and that's going to hurt a lot of poor people, and certainly around the world as well. The World Bank already estimated that we've put 350 million people into what they call food insecurity. 350 million. That's 3 times as many as the communists managed to kill. Maybe we can manage that in a winter. But the planet has too many people on it anyway, so, that's just poor people.
There you go, Joe. Jordan Peterson.
That's just poor people. And again, I don't know the answer here. The policies are idiotic. Anybody who thinks that we can somehow survive on wind and solar doesn't have a grasp of reality at all. And again, we're starting to see what happens to societies when you no longer have and I'm going to say relatively cheap source of energy, Jason.
Yeah, there's an inexhaustible amount of oil. And if people want to say that burning oil is destroying the planet, I'm sorry, they're just wrong. I mean, maybe we need to find a new energy. I think there are energies out there that certain individuals on this planet, certain families know about that we're not allowed to use. But we go away from that for a moment. We could burn trees. Well, look, you want to have a bad atmosphere. Look what burning trees does. That's biofuels.
Let's face it, in large parts of Europe now, that's exactly what they're doing.
Because it's considered a green energy. It's renewable because you can grow another tree. But you know what? It pollutes way worse. We burn oil because that is the most efficient and clean there is. There's coal and there's oil. That's it. And there are, I'm going to say this, Joe, we have got on the Half Empty Cup of Joe, we have these really, really smart people that come on. They talk about, electromagnetic energy. There are things out there. But we don't have those. The way we're sitting, we're looking at people in countries in the West getting rid of the ability to pump out more oil and create more oil and make it cheap, because they have all these backroom deals with different countries and other different globalists across the planet. And, just like Jordan Peterson says, it's shocking because for poor people, hundreds of millions could die if the wrong situation happens. Can you imagine, Joe? Can you imagine if the energy crisis they've created kills 50 million people this winter? It would be devastating. It ain't nothing like COVID when people are starving to death.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you can't heat your homes, and what do you do? Right? What do you do when you can't heat your home? Right? You freeze to death. I mean, it's pretty simple. People don't, and again, I know we try to do the best job we can of explaining this to people. Obviously, our mainstream media does a good job of not giving you the full scope of this. Why is the pound falling out of bed? Because they said, you know what, we've got to pay for all this power, or, we could have millions and millions of people die from hypothermia, from frostbite. So and they don't have any money. At the same time, central banks, they're talking about, hey, we got to have emergency meetings to raise rates even higher. And all of a sudden, this debt bomb that, let's face it, we have one, but so does Europe, so does England, so does Japan, so does China. This debt bomb seems like it's getting ready to go off simultaneously all over the world.
It absolutely is happening, Joe. And here's the thing. Is it going to blow up all at once, or is it going to blow up a little at a time? It doesn't really matter. That's why we sell gold and silver. This is why we put your sun on. You got to prepare yourself when things are calmer and better than they're going to be in the future. So, give us a call. Right, Joe? 800-951-0592. Gold is outside of the craziness of this system we're in. It holds its value. So we got one more segment, guys. Patriot Trading News Hour. We'll be right back.
800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason. $20 gold pieces, still $19.95. And Jason, the gold markets, the silver markets, once again, starting to separate from these paper markets as again the currency crisis that continues to unfold here. Seemingly now, almost all of the G7 nations are in some type of currency predicament, and again, this is. Jeremy Siegel probably had it right. Of course, he wasn't singing this tune a year ago, but we were. And this is why Jason and I, we've been saying this from day one. There's no good choices here. There's no easy way out here. This is the situation that the central banks put themselves in. Their only solution, and it's always been the only solution to any problem they've ever had, Jason, is the creation of more debt.
That is how they enrich themselves. It's a private corporation. The Federal Reserve and all central banks are private corporations with just usually a dozen or 2 dozen actual heavy interests, and they only enrich themselves at the at the disaster of everybody else around them, Joe. We as the people pay what, 35%, 30%, 25% federal income taxes to get what from your federal government? Endless wars and bad decision making and all kinds of really bad spending plans. That's how they steal it from us. We give it to them to pay down some of the interest on that debt as they continue to make it bigger and bigger every year. And it's just a Ponzi scheme, Joe. We all voluntarily and basically pay into the Ponzi scheme. Every time you pay your federal income tax, you're paying into this scheme. That's the Federal Reserve System, and it's. I wish more people would wake up to it, Joe.
Yeah, and again, I think that it's a situation now where either you're prepared for what's coming, and if you're not preparing for what's coming, repeats and shades of really the last couple of crises, the financial crisis, the dot-com bubble, but on a much bigger scale now, because you're seeing, like I said, these developed nations that were supposed to be protected by the bankers themselves, essentially now, Jason, having their own currency crises because, hey, this is at a point where we need to take stimulus away because of the inflation, yet the inflation's so bad we need to give stimulus so people don't freeze to death.
Well, that's how you take whatever little blood is left in the middle class and the business class is you suck it out of them, and then you make sure that the poor get just enough to live on, just enough, so that you can keep pushing this system down. This is why I keep saying that we're heading for the dark ages. We're going to end up in a place of lords and peasants, and it's not going to be friendly to the average person because you won't have a choice to revolt. You know, this digital currency is complete control, Joe. It means you can't refuse or you can't rebel against the system that's in place because you won't be able to buy food or pay rent.
800-951-0592.